Memory Pending. Chapter 2. My eyes slowly regained focus as I felt the throbbing and spinning in my head lessen. I couldn't think clearly, everything being a foggy miasma of heat and cotton inside my skull. Wow, it's amazing anyone used drugs when they could just go out and cave their skull in for the same effect. My frame shook with a dry cough as I sat up in the mud. How long was I out for? The rain still came down just about as hard as before, and my bed had been slowly reduced to a slime bowl. That didn't tell me much, however. I estimated a few minutes that I'd been unconscious, maybe. My eyes glanced out towards the house I was parked close to, mind in a haze as another wave of nausea came over me from the motion. Stilling my emotions somewhat, I slowly let the feeling pass, feeling warmth spread up my neck and head. Oh, not good. I needed to get out of this rain, and soon. A warm light came out of one of the windows of the house and gently spread across the rain-soaked ground. My eyes caught motion suddenly, and I made an extra effort to freeze in place, as to not be noticed. Hey, it was that mare from earlier. Her light yellow coat was brightened in the soft light of her house, and her pink mane swayed nervously as she looked up at the sky from her window. Her hooves were idly fidgeting on some shrubbery in her window garden as she watched the heavens wearily. The rain pounded down, and I noticed her window was technically open. She didn't mind to get a little wet, it seemed. Was it the noise that was making her nervous, then? Her fidgeting drew my attention, and I noticed the meticulous care that seemed to go into the gardening on and around her house. It looked like it blended in with the forest, as if it were made of a tree itself. It was very beautiful, and I found myself calming down a little. Shifting to a better position, I watched her through the underside of the tree. I discovered it felt considerably better if I rested with my legs tucked under me than if I spread them out. This quadruped thing was hard. Suddenly, I saw her freeze entirely, and my attention snapped back to reality. My eyes went from their relaxed position to locking on her instantly, only to find her looking directly back at me. Oh. She froze, wide-eyed and shrinking back a little. Aw, crap. My eyes probably reflected the light from her windows. But, though for some reason I couldn't look away. My body locked up and I started shivering uncontrollably again. Moments passed. Or was it hours? Neither of us moved. Ironically, she looked as terrified as I was. Any moment now, I anticipated the legion of hellish carnivores to descend upon me. All she'd have to do was scream or call out. Even longer passed, and yet we continued staring at each other. And staring. And even a little more staring. Utter stillness existed between us, and finally I relaxed my eyes a little. After several more seconds passed, I saw her frown, but her shoulders lowered from their rigid guard position at the same time, her eyes softening considerably like mine. We just watched each other. I lost track of time for a while, either because of focus or due to my head spinning and tumbling, I didn't know. She seemed nervous, but somewhat curious now. It dawned on me that she probably knew about as much of me as I knew of her. It didn't drive her to action regardless, and she seemed content with just observing. Her pink mane tilted as she watched, and I caught myself blushing slightly. She was pretty. If she were my old species, she'd remind me of some of the posters we used to have hanging in the barracks. The ones meant to soothe and relax, of course, not the, other kind. I caught myself smiling slightly. Probably my first in quite a few hours. My eyes relaxed a little as my focus readjusted. My head felt a little clearer. Maybe. That sickening heat that had been possessing it since I woke up seemed to simmer down a little. Then my ears twitched, picking up a low whistling noise from above me. Wait, what was that? Some exotic bird or something? It seemed oddly familiar. She must have heard it too and glanced up at about the same time that I did. My eyes widened and my pupils felt like they might pull into my head as I watched the radiant rainbow ball of death descending towards my position, sounding off a low whistle as it fell. Oh crap, mortar shells? I tried to stand up and dive out of the way as best I could, suddenly remembering my training in a hurry. My body felt weightless as the area around my private sanctum was consumed in a radiant, prismatic mushroom cloud. The raw heat from the particles released burned against my coat, and the wind blast lifted and tossed me as if a feather dancing on the breeze. It felt almost graceful as I flipped once, lazily through the air as the world seemed to grind to a halt. I momentarily wondered how they had found me so quickly, and then if I would get a replay of my life before passing. The mud sizzled and quickly hardened to my mane and coat, and I felt my throat go raw from the blast of pressurized air. Wow, what an amazing weapon. Not only was it utterly destructive, but it managed to be beautiful at the same time. A single moment at the pinnacle of my arc. I hung there with droplets of rain around me, standing equally defiant of gravity as they turned to heated mist from the blast. He was gorgeous. If this were to be my last moment, I could be content. I didn't realize such beauty could exist in destruction. That attack was amazing and rivaled some of the artillery of my prior technology. Even some of the mid-level magical attacks would be hard-pressed to show that much force, I realized. And certainly not that much style. Well, style wasn't bothered with, largely due to efficiency. It was an ugly time, I seem to recall. At that moment, I was kind of glad I didn't remember most of it. Nothing lasts forever, sadly. Gravity started its harsh tugging again, and I felt my stomach lurch as I descended towards the land once more. It was pointless, really. I smiled and simply closed my eyes. I was a dozen meters off the ground at this point, with no barrier nor anything to slow my descent. In my weakened state, I'd probably shatter every bone in my body upon impact. I simply let it come. I should have looked down first. Note to self, always look down first. The tree branch smashed into my stomach, catching me totally unaware. Ambushed, all the air retreated out of my lungs immediately, giving up the fight without even presenting a white flag. There was a snapping noise half a second later as my weight overwhelmed the branch's load capacity and it gave out, sending me further down into the canopy with a dull thud. All four of my legs flailed about helplessly, attempting to latch onto anything with as much grace as a drunken giraffe. Seconds later, I managed to snag another cooperative branch with my hind legs. Hanging upside down in the middle of the tree canopy, I contemplated how best to get down. My plan for a graceful end had went swimmingly, executed with style and grace that I couldn't help but simply applaud. Irritated, I swung freely a bit and tried to rotate myself around. Sadly, in my weakened condition, there wasn't much I could do to pull myself back upright. My back and stomach muscles were screaming in agony at this point. Well, at least it was a little drier inside of the tree canopy than in a mud hole on ground level, right? "Rainbow Dash, are you okay?" was spoken quietly, a bit off to my right. I glanced back that direction and watched the rainbow light slowly dissipating. "Heck yeah! That was awesome! Did you see that? What an amazing recovery from that dive!" Spoke a small-looking pony that was near the location of the newly formed crater. Well, she looked small anyway. It was hard to tell, me being a good 6 or 7 meters off the ground. And upside down. The even smaller-looking yellow mare was exiting the house, carefully making her way around the puddles in her yard, giving herself a little boost occasionally with a tiny set of wings on her back. Wait, wings? I glanced back to the blue pony with the massively contrasting rainbow mane and tail, and I noticed she had wings too. I hadn't seen those on the others from my observation earlier. That was really dangerous. Are you absolutely sure you're alright?" the yellow pony with the pink mane asked. Was this Rainbow Dash a title or an actual name then? That certainly seemed fitting as a title. Wait, Rainbow? My eyes shifted back to the glow that was now rapidly fading. She made that blast herself? My respect and similarly fear for these small ponies increased drastically. Relax, Fluttershy. I had it totally under control. Well, the dive, not the storm clouds. I'm still working on those. The Rainbow Dash replied. Fluttershy. That didn't seem as fitting to her appearance, but was cute still. Very feminine. Maybe they were names after all? I didn't have one myself, so who was I to judge the sound of theirs? Wait, I was getting distracted. Get down from the tree before I pass out from blood rush to the head, then spy on, observe the ponies. I swayed tentatively, trying to reach for a lower branch with my forelegs, so I could maybe slowly lure myself down. Okay, grace and focus. I could do this. Taking a few deep breaths, I tried to relax myself. So the storm really isn't meant to have been this bad, huh? Fluttershy asked, barely audible above the rain hitting the ground. My thoughts drifted slightly as my forelegs brushed against the branch I was targeting. Did Rainbow Dash have something to do with the weather? Maybe they controlled their climate through magic instead of technology. There was a light cracking noise above me, and I sighed. Today really kind of sucked so far. I glared back to my right defiantly, staring at the back of the small, blue and rainbow-colored pony. Sure, she probably would never know, but I had to salvage what little ego was left after she absent-mindedly blew me up without even noticing my existence. By braking! I shuffled myself closer to the trunk of the tree, to move the center of my mass closer to the main support, and slowly took hold of the lower branch, testing my weight against it lightly. Well, it seemed to be able to support my weight so far. I might have gotten a little impatient with the schedule. But it's not my fault they interfered with my training regimen and I had to jump things up a notch, right? Besides, I totally got this. Just head back inside and stay dry, okay? Rainbow Dash suggested, in her much harsher voice. They seemed about the same age and acted like friends. Fluttershy drooped noticeably but nodded. Well, if it will help, of course. But if it's not too much trouble, could you maybe see if there's some pony else around? I thought I saw another pony, hiding under the tree that you kind of blew up. She pointed out, glancing back at the crater. My heart stopped. She knew I was a pony? She acknowledged me. I smiled mentally. Wait, oh crap, she acknowledged me. And she didn't say to help the blown-up pony. I might be in quite a bit of trouble. I'd not be able to escape from the rainbow-colored one if she decided to attack. Fluttershy, why would any pony be out in this weather hiding under a tree? I'm sure your imagination just got the better of you looking out into the dark. Rainbow Dash tried to assure. Whew. Wait, any pony? Huh, clever. Now that I thought about it, I think I'd heard some pony earlier, too. Fluttershy nodded weakly and seemed to believe her. And I felt both badly and relieved at the same time. Maybe the winged ponies were nicer? Or at least didn't eat meat. I shuddered as I remembered the horrifying blue pony from earlier and almost lost my balance. Good, and don't worry about this storm. I'll have it fixed up in 10 seconds flat. Rainbow Dash announced before giving a curt yet confident nod to Fluttershy. Her yellow friend looked less than sure of the boast, but slowly started making her way back towards the house, daintily avoiding the puddles. I watched her go, trying to resist smiling and blushing at the grace and simple adorableness that she oozed from every portion of her body. Well, I wasn't sure if it was blushing at this point, as a good 60% of my blood felt like it was swelled into my skull. I squinted my eyes shut as the thought of her body formed a shortcut to the, other image I had from her earlier. My body heated up and I wobbled, trying to calm myself down again. Ugh, stupid, dirty, filthy mind! Why was this such a big deal? The culture obviously didn't actively endorse clothing like mine used to. I was a mature, fully grown, rational, and reasonable individual. Surely I could halt these barbaric thoughts that plagued my head. Rainbow rocketed into the air at speeds I couldn't follow, shooting straight back up towards the cloud line while leaving a very familiar-looking trail. Wow. Well, that was fairly impressive. The sheer power she must contain in her body left me in awe. I wasn't a raw attack mage, though, so most displays of pure power surprised me. Still, I thought I'd seen it all. Her grace and style left me feeling somewhat cheated with what few memories I could recall of the battles I'd participated in. Then something dawned on me as my brain momentarily processed physics. Oh no. The blast of wind hit my tree suddenly from her spontaneous takeoff. Oh crap! I swayed and flailed, trying to keep my balance. Several antagonizing seconds later, I slowed my rotation and managed to still myself, trying to grasp for the lower branch I had prior. Success! Oh, that was a close call. That's about the time when the branch I was dangling from snapped, of course. If I had time to sigh, I would have. They're very therapeutic, I hear. My head bounced off the lower branch I had my sights set on as I fell backwards. Several more collisions racked my body from various angles before I smashed, screaming, into the mercifully muddy ground below, making everything go black. Again. Half a dozen worlds fell in the space of months as the sky burned and split, letting the demons through. Our allies lost half that, but only had half as many to begin with. Everything was ending, and our last event wouldn't be some natural occurrence, many decided, but a hostile race bent on our demise. The extinction of our species. The very concept of it was frightening, and I simply couldn't wrap my mind around it. Dwelling on it too long rapidly caused madness, as many had attested to firsthand. It would seem that our psyche simply couldn't hold up to the thoughts of cessation of existence. Most of my friends joined the military, either willingly or through conscription. I was one of the few who actually chose to join. Not due to a rash desire to prove myself, nor through some larger sense of duty or obligation. No, I chose to join to stop the invaders before there was nothing left for them to destroy. Because I could easily see where they were going, and it left me terrified, crying, and unable to sleep at night. They wouldn't stop until everything I knew and loved, and every person I cared about, were erased from existence. And I fought to make a difference, even if it was next to nothing. To stop them from destroying everything I cherished. Because if I didn't fight, it wouldn't really matter anyway. I made no difference, of course. Our last world was the worst, as to be expected. I remembered it clearly somehow. Everything was as if a movie with no ending. The seventh world had fallen, leaving us with only our home planet. Our allies had retreated, and we fought tooth and nail for this ball of rock floating around a star. As the plans became increasingly daring and futile, what we accepted as losses expanded greatly, I noticed. Eventually, it was perfectly acceptable to weaponize the moon to strike out at the impossibly large fleet in our orbit. Forgotten so easily was the cherished traditions and culture surrounding the moons around our home planet. In trying to defend ourselves, we lost who we were regardless. And even then, it didn't matter. The sky exploded into flames, and a haphazard chorus of screams erupted around me. Bunker number 312 was my charge, and I can't remember a point before or after this. Ponies scattered into the corners of the bunker as I sealed it up behind me, activating the complex shielding magic with my muzzle. It wouldn't do much, of course, but it helped them feel safer. The orbital strikes could eat through 3 layers of similar shielding in seconds. I swallowed hard and directed my platoon into guard position. The last line of defense. Honestly, we would fade away here. There was no hope at this point. Everything we could do had been tried and failed. Some comfort was found as I stood there on the charred landscape surrounded by my friends. We were all about to die, but we were to die as ourselves. I knew nothing had changed who I was, and nothing the invaders did could take that away. The hellish monsters descended from the burning heavens themselves, massive and pale. Their cyan coloring clashed violently with the crimson sky. The 4 long leg-like tentacles extended menacingly towards the planet, their shapes a cruel mockery of our forms. The rainbow-maned figureheads jutted out from each of their hulls, and an equally prismatic exhaust pushed them forwards. My mind mentally pictured the unnatural cyborg rabbits that piloted the diabolical crafts. Their entire race was bent on the utter destruction of my people and would stop at nothing to achieve their goal. The heads of the mare-looking figureheads seemed to laugh arrogantly as they opened their mouths and fired burning, rainbow apple cores towards the surface. My body braced for impact as I conjured what was probably my last very... Wait a second. Something seemed... a little off. My eyes slowly opened and a faint dawn light greeted them. A dagger of pain stabbed into my head as the light was processed, and I groaned weakly, trying to will the image away from me. I closed my eyes again, feeling drained and sick. It was just a dream. Or was it a memory? It felt like my current memories and the old ones were kind of leaking together. Why was I not dead yet? My mind retreated into myself for the moment, and I tried to ignore the light stabbing sensation at my gut. Probably internal bleeding or something. If I was lucky, I'd lose consciousness and die in my sleep. Will you stop poking him with that there stick? It's mighty rude, Scootaloo. Sounded behind me somewhere. Oh, wonderful. Internal bleeding sounded even more merciful now. The voice was lighter, maybe coming from a younger pony? What would that be, a foal? The newly identified jabbing continued, however, and I kept my eyes shut. Oh, come on. I'm just trying to wake him up, Apple Bloom, was the reply, apparently from one Scootaloo foal. Well, I assumed they were ponies anyway. It wasn't like I bothered to check. Just let him sleep, Scootaloo. Can't you see he looks plumb tuckered out? Was the comeback from the same heavily accented younger pony from before. Finally! A reasonable suggestion! There was a stagnant pause and the poking stopped. What's that stuff all over him? A softer, previously unheard of voice asked. I became noticeably aware of the caked mud all over my coat and exhaled sharply. It actually felt kind of nice being significantly cooler than the sun on my body. It looks like, I don't know, maybe Rainbow done romped with him or something, reasoned Apple Bloom. They had such unique names. Wait, romp? Oh, if that meant what I thought it did. A light heat made it to my face, separate from the sunlight. Rainbow? I better not be Rainbow that she was talking about. Although they pegged my gender already, it would seem, and I wasn't dead yet. But they were also fairly young sounding. Maybe they were part of a scouting party instead of hunting. There was a hacking noise behind me. No way! Rainbow wouldn't romp with him, he's nowhere near cool enough. Scootaloo defended suddenly. The heat was replaced with a twinge of irritation. Rainbow Dash was definitely a name, and could only mean that egotistical blue pony from before. I suddenly remembered I had no idea how long I had been unconscious for. What's romping? The gentler voice asked innocently, sounding a little confused. There was a much longer pause. I haven't the faintest, was eventually admitted via the accented pony. I resisted, chuckling. You don't know what romping is? Asked Scootaloo incredulously with a hinting of ego. Suddenly I realized why she liked Rainbow Dash. There was a derisive snort in reply, followed by, I suppose you know, do you? She probably didn't. Of course. It's when two ponies wrestle in the mud together to decide who's better. Scootaloo answered almost instantly. What? There was another pause. Wow. That makes sense then, looking at him. How did you know that? The innocent voice asked. There was a confident snickering. Pinkie Pie suggested it to Rainbow Dash and Applebloom Sis after the running of the leaves, obviously to decide who was better, Scootaloo explained. I remember that. Doesn't sound too bad, though. What did Sis yell at her for, then? Applebloom questioned, sounding doubtful. And Rainbow Dash got all pink after all, don't forget. The innocent one chimed in. I wish I knew her name. And Rainbow Dash must have been embarrassed over something. Maybe this romping held some sort of social significance that the younger ones weren't aware of? Huh. There was an apparent moment of reflection. I don't know. Maybe she wanted to give Applejack a sporting chance? She obviously didn't with this stallion, dang. Scootaloo finally replied. My irritation spiked back with a vengeance. Oh, who was I kidding? Rainbow Dash could probably mop the floor with my face even with me at full strength from what she displayed yesterday. Still, Scootaloo could have been a little bit more considerate to my ego. Wait, what the hell was I doing? These three assumedly ponies obviously were members of the community of carnivorous equines. Dang, they got me to let my guard down. Clever young ones. Maybe they were set intentionally just to get me to relax and lead me to a false sense of security? Were they just scouts, or some sort of hunting party bent to my horrible death and roasting? My eyes opened up rapidly, and I shifted my neck to glance back at where the poking was coming from. Three tiny foals slipped into my field of vision. They were considerably smaller than the ones I saw before, so I assumed they were younger. Apparently yesterday, by the position of the sun above me, and to the right I also noted. Was it morning? The center pony looked almost tan, but I guessed it was just an orange coat color. Her mane was either purple or a really dark pink. She also sported a set of smaller wings on her back. Her head was rotated away from me, looking back at the pony to her left. Speaking of, the one to her left was almost yellow in coat color, somewhat similar to Fluttershy's from yesterday. Her mane contrasted heavily, being a vibrant red. The last pony, looking on from the back with careful examination, was whitish in color, similar to my coat, but without the blue hue to it. Her hair was an equal measure of purple and pink, making mine far less eccentric feeling. My eyes were drawn to a tiny horn that protruded from her forehead, seamlessly connected to her skin, it seemed. That was like the carnivorous pony from before. All three ponies jumped with my sudden movement and rapidly backed up slightly as a group. No direct confrontation. They must not be a true hunting party. Surely they could have used their superior's numbers to overwhelm my defenses fairly quickly if they had attacked. I rotated my butt around so my rear and flanks were away from them and glared more directly. Out of my peripheral vision, I scanned the riverbank again and planned a potential escape route. I guess I would try to fight to live another day after all. Oh, you startled us there. Hey there, stranger. I don't believe we met before. I'm Applebloom. The red mane suddenly greeted. This caught me off guard, but told me what I'd already guessed from her accent. Her smile was polite, but I was on to her. My eyes narrowed slightly, and I risked a direct glance towards the river. It was 6 meters away or so, and flowing faster after the storm last night. The one in the middle raised an eyebrow, but otherwise wore a neutral expression regarding my complete and total silence. To my surprise, the white pony to her right stepped a little closer, though.
Hello. My name is Sweetie Belle, and this is Scootaloo. She, apologizes for poking you with the stick, right?
She offered up. Well, at least I knew her name now.
I My what?
Scootaloo, the now identified middle foal, asked, staring at Sweetie Belle in surprise while shoving a small stick near her feet away from herself. Attempts to act nonviolent to hide prior transgressions. She was crafty. Maybe their leader. My mind spun its gears rapidly as I thought. I came up with an amazingly brilliant escape plan within seconds. My eyes widened and I gasped, looking over the three. "Oh no! Burning apple cores are falling from the sky!" I shouted, pointing back behind them. All three ponies freaked out and spun around faster than I thought possible. Yes! They fell right into my trap! With great agility and speed, I booked it towards the river in full retreat, tripping a half-meter later and smashing along the bank when hitting the wet dirt. Less than elegantly, I managed to roll twice and splash into the water. My protesting muscles gave out rapidly, but victory was achieved. Applebloom walked up next to my slowly drifting form and trotted next to me as I drifted down the river. "That was awfully mean, you know. Are you playing some sort of game or something?" she asked, giving me an irked look. Crap. "Maybe he's not feeling well and just wants us to leave him alone?" Sweetie Belle asked, following along after her. "Or maybe he's just a dork," Scootaloo chimed in, mirroring Applebloom on the other side. I sighed, wishing I could just drown so I could escape. "You need to be nicer, I reckon, Scootaloo. He ain't looking so good if you know what I'm saying," she pointed out. Didn't that work in their advantage? My head started to ache again. I felt the warmth leaking from it into the water. Oh, great. I hope blood didn't excite them. Reaching up, I rotated my impromptu bandage and tightened the tie on the one end of it. The stretchy tie knot was within view of my eye that was above the water now, and I noticed its rainbow patterns, now my least favorite color. Colors? I weakly let my forelegs drop, wondering why they didn't seem to be attacking me, and at the same time kind of wishing they'd just get it done and over with. "Oh my! He's bleeding! We should get him back to the village. That needs to be tended to," Sweetie Belle suddenly announced right on cue. Crap, they did pick up on it instantly. And tended to? What, with seasonings and spices? Oh no, they must keep their food live until they cook it up. Scootaloo sighed. Oh, dang. Ribodash must have done a number on you. Fine, let's fish him out of the stream and get him to... Her ironically truthful statement was interrupted by a sudden, massive gasp. It took me a second to realize she herself had done it. My eyes shifted over to her instantly and noticed that she was staring with almost intensity at my... butt? What? The other two fillies on the other side zoomed in on the same spot the instant they saw her look. There was a momentary pause, and then they suddenly matched her stare. What? What was going on? I was so confused. Was my butt bleeding too? Oh my goodness! He ain't got no cutie mark! Applebloom suddenly declared, as if the world was ending. Cutie what? What the hey? He's a full-grown stallion. How can he not have one? Scootaloo asked on the other side, sounding utterly stunned. Sweetie Belle stopped walking, though. Oh no. Does that mean we might not get ours after all? She asked, suddenly sounding extremely sullen. My mind rapidly tried to piece things together. As an adult, I was supposed to have something on my butt or flank that indicated something, but I didn't have it. They wanted one as well and seemed downright depressed that they didn't yet. Scootaloo indicated it had something to do with adults, so maybe it was some sort of rite of passage? Applebloom suddenly smiled, which made me exceptionally suspicious. Wait an Applebuck a minute. If you don't have a cutie mark yet, maybe you can help us get ours instead, she suddenly reasoned. I swallowed tightly, memory suddenly flashing back to last night. There was, if I remember correctly, something on Rabodash's flank. A mark of some sort. Oh, hell. It was some sort of ritualistic tattoo they got upon her reaching adulthood. If I could help them get it, it must be based off their first kill or something. Thrusting upright in the water, I rapidly tried to swim away, mindful that the water was barely half a meter deep. The lack of capability to trip actually made my progress faster, however. Hey, she's right! Don't you want to help us get our cutie marks? Scootaloo shouted after me, breaking into a gallop to keep up. Damn her! If only I had half the skill she did of making all these confounded legs move the right direction. Panicking, I flailed rapidly into a turn of the river, trying hard to get away from the carnivorous ponies chasing me. All three were managing to keep up, sadly, and I cursed my ineptitude at this current form. I should have practiced more before coming to town. I should have prepared. How stupid was I? Wait, girls! He needs to get that wound looked at first. Then we can help him get his cutie mark too, right? Sweetbelle suddenly called out, stagnated between gasps of breath. Wait, help me get a mark? Something fishy was amidst the situation. I glanced back to see how much distance I gained on them. I was disheartened to discover that it was barely 5 meters. Damn their little legs. Scootaloo's eyes suddenly widened considerably, and she shouted out, Hey, look out for the... The river suddenly turned, this time without me, as I was looking back at them. My surprise set in just as the side of my head smashed into a rather large rock on the bank. Ugh.